feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Shrimp Tank and our fireside chat here, the Shrimp Tank. This is really where street smarts and book smarts collide. Lee Heisman, my co-host, and myself, Ted Jenkin, we've done some 225 interviews with some of the brightest and best CEOs in and around Atlanta and the state of Georgia. Then the Shrimp Tank took off, and we're now in dozens of cities around the United States. We're in Orange County and Seattle and Houston and Little Rock and Boca Raton and Harrisburg and Boston and many other cities across the United States, because how do entrepreneurs learn out there? Well, the brightest and best learn from the brightest and best. So what we do here on the Shrimp Tank every week is we hear the journeys and the stories of entrepreneurs and how they've battled the good times and the bad times to build their business and figure out how to use that combination of street smarts and book smarts in order to be able to be successful. You can catch a replay of every broadcast that we've done on shrimptankpodcast.com. It's just a fantastic website. All of the interviews, you can get our podcast on iHeartRadio nationally with 100 million plus listeners across the country. And of course, you can always download all the episodes if you want to and get us on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or anywhere around the internet. And of course, we're going to be bringing in our guest today. Really excited to have him on, and we're going to talk a lot about his business after we talk a little bit about what's going on with the coronavirus and how it's affecting business here in Georgia. Eric Farber, he's the CEO of Farber and Company, and also the owner of the Pacific Workers Compensation Law Center. He's got an unbelievable law firm in 6 or 7 cities now in California. He's a super lawyer, and we want to talk to him about his book tonight called The Case for Culture, because a lot of you are wondering right now with your businesses, how do you not only build a culture, but maybe you have to rebuild the culture in your organization if things have been fragmented, and us going to this sort of virtual environment today. So Lee, as always, great to have you together here on these fireside chats so we get back in the studio. And Eric, thanks for joining us from California tonight. Guys, I wanted to start off, and I just want to put up this poll because I think it's going to start our first conversation tonight. And I'm launching this poll on here. And the poll is just really simple. I don't know if you could see it on there, but it basically says, look, we live in this state, Georgia, and sometimes, Lee, we get beat up for being like the Dukes of Hazzard. And then you wonder, are we the Dukes of Hazzard or are we not the Dukes of Hazzard? And it says, was it too early for Governor Kemp to open up the state of Georgia? And I just put a quick multiple choice up here that I said yes or no. I'm going to just end the poll so we can start talking about it.
Well, Ted, are you boss hog in this or Daisy Duke?
I always wanted to be boss hog. I always wanted to date Daisy Duke. So I'd like to be able to do both of those, you know? So what do you think, Lee? I mean, too early to start in here in the state of Georgia?
So, Governor Kemp, as we know, we're in our state. If you haven't seen it, and maybe if you're across the country as yourself, Eric, what we're opening up is Friday the 24th. The list of businesses include body art, which I had to look that up, Ted. I thought, are they sculpting body art? And I didn't know it, being ignorant. It's a tattoo parlors. Thank you. Yes, Eric has a few, clearly. Body art, bowling alleys.
That's important.
Fitness petri dishes. It feels like that's a petri dish, pretty much.
Who wants to stick their fingers, Lee, into 3 holes in a bowling ball or whatever it is when everyone else has done that? What are you going to make a glove that's got 3 fingers?
I have my own bowling ball.
Ted. Yeah, if you bring your own bowling ball. So you have fitness centers.
SpongeBob SquarePants bowling ball.
So again, you also have salons and massage centers. Now this is just on Friday, which are very intimate locations.
Yeah.
And I understand, I've talked to a number of salon owners that stated they're going to be keeping people separate. They're going to separate seats. They're going to have more distance between people. They will be wearing facial coverings. They're going to be doing a lot of proactive. But then on Monday, the 27th, be very, very clear, restaurants open up. And as Governor Kemp says, and I will do my best to say it the way he did, theaters. I've always said theaters.
Have people at the theaters down
Governor
there.
Kemp says theaters, which is fine. I like it. I have many friends that say the same thing. They make fun of my northern accent. But theaters and restaurants will be opening on Monday as well. So, Ted, I know your position, and we'll bring Eric in to ask, what are your thoughts? We see pretty much, if you look at media today, Governor Kemp is getting a lambasting from the majority of the country that they feel that it's too early. What is your position?
Lee, I was fixing to have a grill out here, so I might as well do it now. Look, this is one of those situations. I mean, aren't you a little bit damned if you do and damned if you don't? They've talked about the curve for many, many weeks now, but I wonder how much you'd overlay the curve of the coronavirus and the curve of the unemployment virus, which led to 22 million people. So it's a really challenging decision because you're talking about the real life or death of people, and you're also talking about the financial suicide of businesses at the same time. And the longer you wait to open, the more businesses that are going to die, and if you open too soon, people might really die. So you have this tremendous grapple going on right now. I personally, Lee, think it was too early here. I think it was just too early. We don't have enough testing right now. I don't think there's guidelines in how you bring customers into your business and keep everybody safe. And look, we got a lawyer on here tonight. I'm the last one that wants to get sued because a customer comes into my place and gives my employees the coronavirus. Then they get sick, and then I got $20 million of lawsuits. How am I gonna deal with that, Lee?
Well, Eric, you're out of Oakland currently, just for our listeners and viewers here. What's your position and stance on this?
Well, I think that Ted really hit the nail on the head. This is testing. I mean, this is a colossal failure of our administration in Washington to get testing out. And if this is, if we had the testing and availability of testing the way we need it, then there's a whole different ball game out there. I'll just give you an example. We have somebody who we suspected had it. We actually have had 3 employees. So one of them was actually still working in the office because we locked down pretty quick. And now he's feeling better. He was supposed to go home until he felt better, until he had no symptoms. He was supposed to self-quarantine, which he did. It was a fairly mild case. He wants to come back to work. We said, you got to get a test before you can come back. There's only 2 people left in the office that he's in. He can't get a test because he doesn't have symptoms. How crazy is that one? We're not allowed to let people back in the office who are supposed to have it, but they can't actually get tested anywhere.
So you're exactly right, guys. The testing is an issue, and that's something that we've seen across the media. Availability of active testing, reliability of testing is also another issue. And then you run into what people find to be the silver bullet in the testing world is the antivirus or the antiviral or the antibody testing. And unfortunately, there is no FDA guidelines on a lot of the manufacturers, and they're finding that when companies proclaim 80 to 90% success rate, a lot of tests recently have been done showing that it's a 30% success rate. So yeah, it's a little bit scary, and I call that a soup sandwich. The question I have for you guys, I'm going to take the counterpoint real quick, and I know Governor Kemp, pardon me, is launching April 24th and April 27th here for the opening of businesses. Yeah. If he waits another week till the first week of May, is he then off the hook? Because a lot of other states are talking about May, and we're only looking at a few days, and I don't see a large difference versus it seems like we're almost the beta state right now to monitor and see what happens.
Well, I think, all businesses, it's interesting because there have been some essential businesses that have been open now. And obviously I've gone into a couple to try to see what they're doing, because there isn't a written guideline like there often would be about the things you should be doing in the workplace. So when you go into a Ace Hardware store, they'd only let a certain amount of people into the store, but some people were wearing masks and some were not wearing masks, and they didn't take my temperature. I mean, Lee, what do I have to do? Do I give people a rectal thermometer when they come into my office or what? It's very difficult because any business right now that opens and has customers that come into their place of business are asking that simple question, like, what is my responsibility when those patrons come in, when I'm unknowing of their health situation, and what's my liability here, right? Because if I have employees that work for me and I knowingly let customers in that whether they have the symptoms or they're asymptomatic, come into what's my responsibility? So think about even a business like ours where we had 100 customers come in every week. I'm frightened to death to open the doors again. I don't know what their health is. And then one of my employees gets sick, and all of a sudden, like I said, I'm down 20 million.
Well, I don't know that you're going to see that kind of liability issues because people could have gotten it sort of anywhere. There are things that you can obviously do that we've already thought about. But look, we're on an entrepreneur show right now. There's business owners listening. Look, we got to prepare not for May 1st, not for May 14th, for April 2021. Let's be real about this, right? This is not over just because they say it is. The governor of Georgia is talking about a state that has had the top 10 in deaths. This is not about right now. This is about a peak at the end of summer. This is about a peak in the fall. This is about a peak during winter time. This, all that we were supposed to be doing in the lockdown was flattening the curve. We weren't ending the virus. There's no herd immunity, which, the herd immunity is very interesting. Sweden has had some success, so to speak, Germany, etc. But those are very different societies. You don't have people running around going, here's my gun, here's my rights. Right?
Very, very true.
Very different types of places that are they have a collective culture that thinks in a different way and a culture of empathy to their fellow person. They look around and they say, we're going to treat every single person like they have the virus. Every surface, I'm going to say that I have the virus. And so that alters the way you are going to behave around everybody else.
So guys, here's a question on here, just in a quick poll. How soon do you think people will feel comfortable bringing employees back to work, and what kind of policies do you adopt? If you had an office space where you had 20, 30, 40 employees, is the answer going to be May 1st, May 15th, June 1st? I mean, and what do you do to just safeguard the environment as a whole? Because I think a lot of business owners that have 10, 20, 50 person businesses, I don't think they know what the answer is going to be.
So Ted, I'll share with you real quick in two positive notes. And I always tend to, and Eric, and if you listen to us or hang out with us more, you realize I'm always looking at the cup being half full. So, what we're doing at our organization is we're going to be having a meeting, and we have about 60 employees. We are not going to have multiple people in a room together. We're going to give it to the employees to decide if they feel comfortable coming back. Number one, to whichever employees want to have a little variety in their life, meaning I want to get out of my house and come back in. But at the same time, we're not going to allow 2 to 3 or multiple employees to be in an entire workspace, and we'll be offsetting employees. So we might only have a quarter of our staff back one week, a different quarter back the next week, because if you know anything about this virus, it's going to live on surfaces for 2 to 3 days, which is pretty much the length of a weekend. So I would not rotate employees during the week. I would maintain the same staff, even in a partial staff, simply for that entire week, for then the weekend itself, after cleaners come in addition to the length of time. But I do want to share one other important point. And for our listeners out there, I always like to look at the cup, as I said, half full. What we have done with quarantine here in this country, and I know we want to get to our entrepreneurial piece, but what I know that we've done to our culture in this country is we've woken everybody up to the severity of this and the longevity of it. So our Governor Kemp can open up restaurants on Monday and theaters. And I will guarantee you that more than 50% of our residents here in the state may not be going to those restaurants and theaters. In February, we all would have gone because we didn't think different. But right now, there is a different mentality that is being acquired from us, as you said, Eric, to protect ourselves and protect others. It's a heightened level of awareness. And to quote Michael Jordan, because of the Last Dance documentary, we're never going to stop this virus. We're just going to try to contain it. You could never stop Michael Jordan, Ted, right? Yep. But you can only hope to contain him to 30, 40, 50 points.
So let's shift gears, Eric, and let's talk about your book, The Case for Culture. You can get it on Amazon. I know it's an Amazon bestseller already, and people should look at this, not if they're just a lawyer and have a law firm, but if you own any kind of small business. And what do you recommend right now for businesses who are trying to maintain their culture? Like they had momentum, they had growth. All of a sudden, they had to send all their employees home, and it's just a different kind of leadership. How are you managing your firm, and how would you recommend managing to try and keep that momentum going in your business?
Well, it was a challenge, and I certainly was one of those. Certainly the first day or two, I just sat on the couch for a few minutes and wanted to cry, right? And said, "Oh my gosh, we just came off of our best year ever. We just came off of our best month in our history in January, and then all of a sudden I'm going to get kicked in the teeth in a very, very different way." So I think and the truth is yes, our intakes for new cases have gone down a bit, but the rest of everything is doing just fine. In fact, we're ahead of our normal goals. We didn't change our goals from monthly goals. We're actually ahead of them.
Wow.
This kicked me into high gear, and I said, we're going to tell all of our employees our plan. And what the plan was is not to lay anybody off, was to keep going whether we got this extra money from the government or not, that we were all going to work our tails off, that we were going to put in more discipline in our meeting schedules and our processes. And then I realized after a bit, I was like, this is it. I mean, my competition, from my understanding, is truly running scared. They're laying people off. They never trusted their employees to begin with. So now they're sending them home with less trust. We, as I like to say, we hired the right people. So I don't care where they're working from. I think that they missed the office more than they thought they would. But they're all working at home. You're talking about like people going back into the office. I'm like, this seems to be working okay. Why do I need all this space? We've got about 50 people total, and the only people who are still in the office are people scanning mail and then sending mail out. So I said, okay, well, let's end that. And workers' comp, which is Pacific Workers' main business, it's the amount of mail going in and out is insane. So I said, this isn't okay. Why don't we do this by email? We're finally allowed to. We weren't allowed to before in workers' comp. And I put the call out to everybody and I said, okay, let's figure out, we did a new process. We figured it out. We put it out to the team. And now we were 4 people scanning and sending mail out. Within 1.5, 2 weeks, we only need 2. And so now we're taking those people and deploying them into other places, but we're not laying them off.
So Eric, here, speaking of layoffs, and you look at our country, which, we're back to pre-Trump years in terms of unemployment already.
Sure.
You're one of the few companies, you just hired somebody new, which is amazing. You're opening new offices, which is amazing, but you also have a book about culture. And when you wrote that book, I'm going to guess and take some liberties, it had to do with everybody and the business pretty much being near each other. How is the book that you've written, and how are you pivoting with it and applying potentially where you sit today, or have you even thought of that?
Absolutely. I mean, I say that our culture is what allowed us to do what we're doing right now. And if there's something that I would give to to leaders that are trying to lead, they may be scared, leading with some vulnerability, not weakness, but vulnerability, and showing your team that you don't have all the answers, but collectively you're going to figure them out. But really leading with honesty, integrity, clarity, transparency to your team right now is the most important thing you can do. And if you don't know, ask them. They're going to help you out in this type of situation.
Eric, I was I was talking to our team today, and Netflix had reported that they had an unreal amount of subscribers over this last quarter, something like 15 million people subscribed. And I reflected back on the story and history of Netflix, that back in 2011, they actually lost 800,000 subscribers in 1 year, and actually were on the verge of bankruptcy not more than a decade ago. And I'm bringing this up because I know you mentioned to me that as opposed to shrinking your marketing efforts, which a lot of businesses are doing, you guys, I think, purchased something like 75 billboards around the area. And I mean, isn't that for some owners, don't sometimes you have to show a sign of strength to your employees that not only are we not folding, we're about to kick everybody's ass on the other side of the aisle? Is that, what do you recommend to owners?
Look, for us, absolutely, right? Although I have a friend who owns a chain of gyms down in Los Angeles, it's very different for him, right? He can't open. He's in the type of business that can't. Although he does have a plan.
If he was in Georgia, he could be able to open, but
on Friday.
They're doing, the dance studios in Georgia, right? I'm going to add something. I do believe that people aren't ready yet. The New Jersey governor has a 70% approval rating because he has said, let's wait. Right. Yep. So, the stimulus package has bought us all some time because the extra money on unemployment. So there's no to me, there's no real rush in this. But what am I doing? Yeah, absolutely. I'm doubling down. I haven't worked this hard since I started the business. Billboards, TV spots, radio, you name it, is all at bargain basement prices right now.
That's a good
Absolute
point.
bargain basement. What I used to pay $500 a board for is now $100.
Wow.
So, you know, if you're a good negotiator and you understand and you've got some faith in yourself and your team and your product, why are you running? Right?
Very, very true. And Eric, this is really important for our listeners and entrepreneurs out there. Ted focuses beautifully, Ted, on where you're going forward and how you're marketing as a business owner. But obviously, as a business owner, in addition to your clients and acquiring new clients, you can't do that. And you know where I'm going with this, Ted, without your employees. And when we got on this call today before, and then this video chat, before we started this, I could have heard something about you're delivering pizzas to your company.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Eric he's like, oh, this is just common for us. This is not common.
It's absolutely common for us. So we have more than 50 social events with our company a year. 50 times a year that we get together to rub elbows, as I say, and get to know the people in the offices.
Was it rubbing elbows before COVID, or did you actually call it that way?
Yeah. Well, it was funny because we did that whole, like, at the week before we all went home. It was that ankle thing, you know.
Fair. So explain the pizza thing, because a lot of business owners, you know, and I've seen this, and you mentioned it, Ted, and Eric, I know you've seen it. This has happened, and you can do one of two things. You can shrink into a ball and just get paralyzed by fear. Or you can do what you do, Eric, which is, hey, I'm doubling down, great deals, I'm moving forward. But in addition to the marketing, explain what you're doing for your staff, because your staff is really in a lot of fear. They, you know, you're driving the ship. They don't know where we're going. So please explain the pizza story, if you don't mind.
I will, and I'm going to throw in a couple other things. So
Please.
We do 50 events a year. We do a happy hour every week. We do monthly lunches. We have 3 major events. One involves the community, one involves the families, etc. I didn't want that to end, and I wanted our messaging to be very clear to them. We know you're scared, but we're going to work twice as hard to make sure that this survives and that you maintain your job. And I think it all starts with hiring the right people, of course. And we have the best team we've ever had. So we have this monthly lunch, and I thought, hey, you know what? Why don't we just get one of those people who no longer scanning mail or answering the phone, and get everybody's address, take their pizza order, and let's deliver pizzas to them tonight. And we're going to have a pizza party. So that's,
Did you get the pizzas made at a local restaurant?
No, well, they all live in different areas because we have a bunch of different offices. So they just basically, we wanted to make it easy and said, okay, you got these chains to choose from because we're all, we're going to order it. But, ordering pizzas for that many people is quite an ordeal, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and one of the other things is we brought them all together and we said, we're going to do 3 years of progress in 3 months. This is opportunity time, not a time to grow, to
Right.
go into a ball. And we said, we're going to ask more from you than we've ever asked. And we're going to ask for more engagement, and engagement is a choice. It's a choice. And if you don't want to choose, here's a month's salary, email me by noon today, and we'll pay you to be home. Because if you're not 110% in, we don't want you here anymore.
Wow.
And so,
Eric,
not one person emailed, of course.
I like that.
Lee mentioned this, and Lee's one of the best people I know at hiring and bringing in talent into companies. And when you talk about this case for culture, it must have to start at the very, very get-go by putting the right people on the bus. Is there anything special you do in your selection process when you bring people on in the recruitment process that helps you bring on talent that you think will improve the organization, be part of adding to that culture, and ones that you can retain down the road?
Absolutely. And we do a lot. We have a very, very disciplined hiring process, which took us a lot of years to get there. And I'm going to, I don't know him personally, but he better thank me because I mention his name on every podcast. A guy named Adam Robinson wrote a book called The Best Team Wins. In everything I've read about hiring, nobody explains it better, because he, so many books on hiring and so many processes split it between sort of the frontline worker and the C-suite, and sort of everything in between. Adam Robinson's way of deciding this, it makes no difference. Our hiring process is almost identical, whether they are sitting behind the front desk or they're in a C-suite. It's almost identical, because we're hiring for long-term match of values. And if there's one thing that I think we do differently than most places, is one, we listen a whole lot. The entire thing is designed to get them to talk. That's one. And we're very, very honest about what the job is. So if we're hiring for a case manager, so to speak, or an assistant case manager on one of our lawyer teams, those are people who are going to spend 6 to 7 hours a day on the phone. We don't sugarcoat this. At the end of the day, sure, we have events, sure, we have parties. At the end of the day, it's about getting the work done. And, if you look at Stoicism, right, which I'm a big fan of the Stoics, work is just a series of tasks every day. There's no rainbow. You're not walking into, hey, I don't care what you do for a living. You got to put in the work, the actual work that goes with it. And we're very honest about that, and we're very clear. We actually send somebody, once we put out an ad and we get resumes, we literally send the job description to them and say, if you're still read the job description. If you're still interested in talking to us, book an appointment with us. Then they go through telephone interviews, and then they go through an in-person. Our goal is to get 100 resumes for every job posting, and we meet with 3.
Wow.
By the time we're done. That's it.
So you almost tried to dissuade them from taking the role.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
So Eric, you seem like
to interview a salesperson, right? Is
absolutely
get on the phone and say, yeah, it doesn't sound like you're a fit for the job, and see what they said.
Oh, it's like when I got married. I did everything I could do to dissuade my wife from trying to actually stick with me, but she stuck around. So listening out there, and it's true. Ted knows her. But you sound like you have everything under wraps. Your business is growing at this time. You're hiring people. You've, as you said, doubled down. You're putting money into marketing. I mean, you feel, it almost feels like nothing has hit you. We're going to get to the part of the shrimp tack now that gets a little challenging for our guest. And we're not going to run into the plead the fifth, Ted. I'm not giving Eric a plead the fifth. However,
plead the fifth tonight?
Well, it is a plead the fifth, but I don't want him to think that he had an out. So we usually run through that segment, Eric. But so I want to know 2 things. Since this hit, what has been your personal, professional or personal biggest failure over the past 6 weeks? Because if you're listening and I'm listening to you, I'm like, well, this guy's perfect. Eric's amazing. He doesn't drop the ball at all. So I want to know, what is your biggest failure that you have experienced and you're learning from? And then also, what is your biggest challenge going forward today? Because you're making it look too easy.
Well, look, I'm going to tell you, you guys are both old enough to remember the movie Broadcast News, where Holly Hunter starts every day by taking the phone out of the hook and crying, right? So, I will not say that I haven't been fearful. I am, right? I also have faith in what we've been able to do and what we've been able to accomplish. The challenge is that our industry is changing, and I don't know if we're in a very antiquated industry of workers' compensation law. And I don't know that 6 months down the line that the way the process works will adapt quickly enough. And so I may run into that challenge. And then it may be cash flow challenges. And so we're trying to plan accordingly. So there certainly, I don't have all the answers. One of my failures was it took me a couple of weeks to really get kickstarted into understanding what we needed to do. We may have moved home quickly and before everybody else. We moved home 5 days before the lockdown order in San Francisco, which was before California, et cetera. But as a leader, it took me a bit to to know what my real role was. To know my real role was, one, start working again in a real way and lead the team. And the other is in the messaging to my team, that I wasn't picking up the phone enough and calling people and assuring them, or just talking to them about their challenges that they were having. It took me a bit to get kickstarted. And actually, it's a mutual friend of Ted and mine who kind of, he's putting out this great content every day, Michael Mogul from Chris Video. He's putting out this great content, and it was one of his videos that sort of said, you need to get yourself up and going. And then
Eric, I'll compliment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going to have very significant challenges. If this is a time of clarity, and you've got to keep clear, and I'm not taking care of myself as I should. Yesterday I worked from literally 5 o'clock in the morning until 9:45 at night with, a couple of breaks. And by the time I was done, I was sort of staring at the screen and it was going, blurry. So I'm not taking care of myself quite as well as I should, because that is if you can't take care of yourself, can't take care of everybody else.
Exactly.
There's definitely some challenges, but as a leader and an entrepreneur, I mean, this is where you get to kick it into high gear, and you don't get to. Yes, you have to recognize that there may be some road bumps, there may be some brick walls, there may be some, literally helicopter blades in your way. But don't think about those right now. Go thread the needle. Go thread the needle that keeps you in business. Go thread the needle that keeps your people employed. Go thread the needle. Like, we're doing stuff that I couldn't have imagined that we would have the time to do. We're, picking up the phone, calling every old client. We ordered 2,000 masks. And so we're calling all our old clients, thousands of them, and saying, hey, we've got masks. Would you like some for you and your family? By the way, anybody that could use our services.
So it's very smart. And that you putting your foot on the pedal. Yeah, that you putting your foot on the pedal, and I'm telling you, I'm going to steal your idea. I hope none of my staff, and I doubt my staff is watching, listening to this, because they listen to me all the time. So I'm going to take full credit, maybe the second or third time, but I'm going to do a pizza run in the next week in the middle of the day. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take yours to the next step. I'm going to do a surprise pizza run. So I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going to get a few of my staff members to deliver to 60 people at around lunchtime.
Are they in Georgia?
Yeah, they're all in Georgia.
They might be out at the movies.
So they better not be at lunchtime. But I will tell you, to your point, Eric and Ted, before you wrap up, I want to share, Eric is so right about culture. I'm going to be picking up a copy of your book, no question, because I can always improve my mentality on it. But something that I learned early on, and a mistake that I made as you were dialoguing, Eric, very clearly, was we would do a lot of company meetings on Zoom, and I would have a screen of 55 or 60 people. And when all this happened, I could speak all day long, but there was so much fear and anxiety. What I quickly found, unfortunately, was I needed to do one-on-ones with people. And if you want to talk about 5 in the morning till 9:45 at night for many, many days in a row, because a telephone call and a Zoom one-on-one gets a true level of people putting their guard down and communicating about how they feel, and I can share with them what we're doing and how we're working. If you're a business owner out there, that is my strong recommendation, Eric. I made a mistake and didn't do that originally, and then I chose to put the time in because your staff needs to hear that from you. And it was arduous, it was long. It was not fun by the 40th person. By the time I got to 55, I didn't even care anymore. And I kept the managers till the end because I simply would just call them and you get the point. I'm going on to the next one. But you're exactly right.
So I will give you a couple of things that I've been doing with regards to that. Is one, yes, we do the Zoom calls, and we have we've laid out a meeting structure where it needs to be on Zoom. Zoom can be tiring, and there was a Psychology Today article just on that today. Zoom can be tiring, but so one of the things I've done is we've set up a Zoom lunch thing. We call the PwC Cafe. It's once a week, and people can just drop in, or it's just jump into schedule a lunch with a group. And then if somebody looks really fearful, and this has happened, the last lawyer that just joined us the Monday before we went home. And so she's looking at it saying, of course I'm getting fired. And I could see it in her face on one of those calls. So I tried to identify the people who really did look fearful, and I called them first, right? And then for the rest of them that know me, that know, like, we're still gonna kick ass. We're gonna figure this out, right? I'm grabbing lunches with them and saying, what are your challenges? How can we do this better? Things like that. So feel free to steal whatever ideas you want. I stole them from somebody else. The other thing we did is we want participation in the extras, the pizza parties, the birthday parties. So we're bribing them. For every one of if they join in, we have about 2 or 3. We're actually about 2 a week. If they jump into whatever it is on Zoom, the karaoke night or whatever it is, they on the honor system, they mark it down, and after 30 days, whoever did the most voluntary ones gets dinner and a movie on us. They get Netflix for a year, and they get an Uber Eats card for like $600, which will pay for dinner once a month for their family.
Or Eric, or a first-class flight to Georgia where they can actually go to dinner and a movie starting on Monday.
Exactly. Right. Well, I was gonna go to Europe. I hear the first-class round trip tickets are like $50.
Fair.
Right.
Yeah, but by the way, side note, this would be the best time to fly because no one's on the plane. So that's a whole other topic. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, Eric, I wanted to thank you for joining us on the Fireside Chat tonight. For folks that are watching the program tonight and other entrepreneurs that are out there, the best way to get your book is just go to Amazon. I saw it's like number 6 right now in all of legal services, which is amazing, being a bestseller. But is that the best place to get the book?
Yeah, Amazon. The Audible will be out. Right now we got 99-cent Kindle because I really want to get it out there. Look, yes, is it written for lawyers? It's niche marketing, guys. You guys understand. But it really applies. Forbes did a great review saying this applies to everybody. And yeah, it went up the chain. I think it hit 2 or 3 in entrepreneurship, which was great.
Are you the audio on the Audible?
I am not.
Darn it!
As I say, I've got a face made for radio, and I got a voice that's for nobody. So
fair.
I am not. I actually hired a professional, right? So
very good.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's the best place to go to. thecaseforculture.com. I have a bunch of reading lists. I put out a reading list every month of great books for entrepreneurs. And so you can hit me up on Twitter at Real Eric Farber. I stole that from somebody else too. Real Eric Farber. And that's it. But yeah, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the majors, Goodreads as well.
Well, we want to say thank you for joining us, not only as a fellow entrepreneur, but amazing story about how your company is growing actually during this time. But it's, it's no surprise that it's happening given that you wrote the book on the case for culture. So it's no surprise that it's happening. Folks, there are stories out there of so many entrepreneurs across America. We hear a lot of people that aren't doing well, but there's so many of us that are fighting through this and we're doing well. And even though we're stretched across all 50 states in the United States, we can all band together as one community, because whether you have a business of 2 people or a business of 200 people, we don't all face the same challenges, but we face many of those similar challenges. Always go to shrimptankpodcast.com. You'll hear from great entrepreneurs around the country. Listen to us every week. Download us on iTunes or Google Play. You can go to Stitcher or SoundCloud, go to iHeartRadio, buy the book from Eric, for 99 cents on Kindle. That's a steal. The return on investment you're going to make is unbelievable. So Eric, thanks for joining us. Good luck on the pizza run tonight with your employees. Lee, as always, it's fun doing these firesides.
Ted, I have one bet for us guys. Since this is a Wednesday night, I have one bet. I'd like to find out, what do you guys think tomorrow night's football draft, the virtual football draft of the NFL? And I know, Eric, you're not a giant NFL fan, but will that be the #1 televised show in history? Because no one has anything else to do right now.
It will be for you.
I bet a lot of people watch it. No one's watching any sports these days. It's the only thing they can talk about.
That's
very true.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everybody, for the Fireside Chat. We'll be back next week. We've got some guests coming on. Lee, who do we have coming on next week?
I think next week is Zach Wojan since restaurants are opening on Monday. Zach has the largest in the state of Georgia valet organization, and he's putting his employees back to work, but he's setting up all the new standards for their safety, Ted. So it's going to be quite interesting to hear how the largest valet company in the entire state is going to be handling restaurants opening on Monday.
Wow, it's pretty cool stuff. I think people are going to need some driving gloves, something like that. So,
yes.
All right. Well, good luck on the pizza run tonight, Eric. Thanks again for joining us. And as always, everybody, thanks for joining us for tonight's Fireside Chat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks. Take care.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in a shrimp tank.